Welcome to the Holyland Dispatch podcast.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Holyland Dispatch podcast. As you might recall, I used to be an extreme leftist in my past. Don't worry, I've recovered from this severe condition a while back. I want to dedicate this episode to discussing the lies I used to believe and those I told myself back in the day. Every once in a while, I'd remember some of those and, like right this very moment, smile. Smile with a bit of embarrassment, but also with some compassion for the gullible fool I had to be to believe them. What lies am I talking about? Well, many. But today we'll talk about just a few examples. The first one, the one that started it all, was the slogan that is still used by some: peace is made with enemies. Back in the days before the disastrous Oslo Accords, when our government tried to justify selling out, one of the main talking points was just that. Well, who do you want to make peace with? Your friends? They're already your friends. You make peace with your enemies. I heard this lie and parroted when arguing with others. After all, when you hear this slogan, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Well, of course you make peace with your enemies. They are enemies, and then you make peace with them, and then they're no longer your enemies. Now they're your friends. A simple lie. A sneaky lie. Exactly because it sounds so logical on the surface, and the left, as we know, as I learned, is all about the surface and no depth. But then you think about it some more. Well, not me back then, but a rational person does. And when you think about it, you realize that your enemies are called enemies, well, because having peace with you is not something they want. In the case of Israel, it's not even a matter of them having conflicting interests. In our case, it's their stated goal of annihilating us that puts a dent in this argument. When a person would try to make that argument to leftist me, I'd reply like a good lefty soldier: so what's your alternative? To be at war forever? Alright, let's sink our teeth into that lie. Peace is made with enemies. Indeed, when a peace treaty is signed between two parties, an actual peace that is, it represents an agreement between people who used to be enemies. Keywords: used to be. It can only be achieved in earnest when both parties realize that peaceful existence is more favorable than war. How is it done? Well, it's done when rational people sit together, agree to make certain concessions in order to have a brighter future. Here lies the problem. The Middle East is in dire shortage of rational people. There is a group of people whose sole purpose is to get rid of the other group of people. Those are not simply enemies. These people are a threat to our very existence. There is no concession to be made with them. No life-loving society would be willing to make that concession. That wouldn't be peace, that would be surrendering to terror, which is exactly what the state of Israel did in Oslo. When Anwar Sadat, the Egyptian president who led them against us in the Yom Kippur War, realized he couldn't defeat Israel on the battleground, he finally accepted our hand in peace. There are many things to be said about the nature of this peace, but the simple truth is that we have a state of absolute absence of war with Egypt for the last 49 years. King Hussein of Jordan was even wiser. He made peace with some financial and other benefits in mind. And indeed, we have a similar state of no war with Jordan for an equally lengthy time. These leaders decided to stop being enemies of Israel And while some of their successors are not exactly leading Zionists by any stretch of the imagination, they keep this peace. Where did a peace treaty completely fail? Who are the people to whom Israel conceded land, arms, power, and who continued to attack Israel without breaking stride? That's right, the people who never stopped being enemies. The people of Yasser Arafat and Abu Mazen, the people of Sheikh Yassin or Muhammad Def, these people. So, no past me. Peace is definitely not being made with enemies. Peace is made with people who decide to stop being ones. And we've seen how we got there. The only way to make enemies lose their will to be enemies is to demonstrate the futility of their purpose. So what is your alternative? War forever? No. Just as long as they wage war against us. And this war should not last forever. Once we lose our childish dreams of them being rational, we can and should prosecute this war with a clear goal in mind. Either they surrender, give up their arms, and change their education system and are under close scrutiny doing so, or they face the grave consequences of setting up to kill us. To summarize, peace is made with people who, by any means, decided to stop being enemies, out of pure interest, be it on their own accord or by being defeated. Sure, Israel should never take back the hand that is extended for peace. Whenever somebody wants peace with us, hey, we're here for that. But try to bite that hand, and you better find out. Let's move to the next lie. This was a lie we said with some reverence. It was some of those somber lies. A lie that you resorted to when challenged about the price of the so-called peace, and it went something like this. Better are the victims or sacrifices of peace than the victims or sacrifices of war. It was said by Rabin in Paris on multiple occasions, and we leftists nodded our heads in agreement. Yes, people are being killed in the streets, in restaurants, on buses, in their homes, but they were not dying in vain. No, they were the victims or sacrifices of peace. And as our brave leaders said, that was a better cause than war, of course. Another sneaky, if not devious lie. It's one of those things that the leftist media echoed with vigor. It was said in this kind of reflective, philosophical tone, and it caught on, well, within the left. The rational people looked at us with an incredulous look, thinking, what the hell is wrong with you people? Are you insane? Well, yes, I'm sad to say I was. That was a really, but really stupid lie, dressed in a prophetic, pathos-filled musing. It's actually embarrassing. This lie is likely so stupid that anyone with a post-elementary education could snap it within seconds. You see, in order to make peace, as we said, we need both parties to be willing to make some concessions. They need to give up something. In other words, peace requires sacrifice. So much is true. But once the peace is signed, there should be no more people sacrificed. Let's say that again. Before the signing of the peace, we're talking about a state of animosity and sometimes war. In this state, people die because, well, they're at war. Then you sign a peace agreement to bring this war situation to an end. Once that happens, the rational assumption is that, well, at the very minimum, that people stop, being murdered by the party you just signed peace with. When you fight a war, people dying in battle is still tragic, but is accepted as a price of war. But when you sign peace, no. My brain still hurts thinking about it. So instead of making comparisons between the sacrifice a nation is willing to make in people's lives in wartime and that of peace, let's finally state the obvious. There should never be victims of peace. Period. What is the meaning of this expression? Victims or sacrifices of peace. Peace is signed so we don't have to sacrifice any more lives. And if Yasser Arafat and his group of Nazi terrorists decided to keep murdering Israelis after signing a peace agreement, well, in that case, Israel should not talk about any sacrifices of peace and instead declare that the peace treaty, which we signed in honesty, is now null and void. In that case, these terrorists should have been either killed or chased away, and Judea and Samaria annexed once and for all, and with every justification under the sun. What we should have never done was accept a single death as a sacrifice of peace. The third and final lie we'll discuss today will set us up for the point of this whole episode. We'll title this lie under "He's only saying this to appease his supporters and sell the Oslo Accords to his people." It was no secret, although the leftist media did its best to keep it one, that while Yasser Arafat was smiling to the cameras, telling Rabin and Clinton that he's happy to make this quote-unquote peace of the brave, as it was referred to, he told his people completely different things. It is well documented, both in writing as well as in video, that Arafat kept assuring his people that the Oslo Accords were not actually a peace agreement with the Israeli enemy. He said that it was simply a step on their way to conquering Jerusalem and sending the Jews to drink from the water of the Sea of Gaza. Yeah, he was a lovely chap, wasn't he? He referred to the Treaty of El-Hudaybah, under which terms Muhammad and his followers prepared for war, and also, since the treaty prevented Mecca from helping out Khaybar, where many Jews lived, these Jews were slaughtered in his name. Yasser Arafat never wanted peace with Israel. How could he? His declared ultimate goal was, of course, our annihilation. But when we leftists were asked about his words to his people, we repeated that lie. He's only saying that in order to appease his people and to sell them on the Oslo Accords. The truth, as can clearly be seen by reviewing the last 3 decades, is that neither Hamas or the PLO or any of those murderous acronyms were never interested in peace with Israel. They broke every deal, continued to kill, kidnap and attack Jews. They did not miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity, as the saying goes. And indeed, the left continued and still does to lie to itself about it, and so many other things. So what brought me to reflect on these lies? Well, mostly this week's Parashat Shemot. I won't go too deep into it here, but in Rabbi Aharon Levi's lesson about the Parasha, we delved into the my truth, your truth versus the truth business. Moses was raised on the truth and therefore became a great man who led the people of Israel out of Egypt. He was raised on the truth that was taught to him by his mother, his sister, and the ladies who defied the Pharaoh's orders to kill every Jewish boy right after birth. These ladies did not care about the Pharaoh's truth, nor about other truisms such as we better do what he says because it's important to preserve our lives. They defied him, as the Torah says, because they saw God. Not literally, of course, but they saw what is true, what is actually the truth. I'll leave the parasha for now and ask, why did we lie? Why was the left as a whole completely wrapped in one lie after another? The deception did not work on other people, that's for sure. So what's the point? The point is exactly that. The point is the reason for the lies. People who are not basing their views on the truth, but rather choose their truth, whether it was inherited from parents, learned at some institution, or developed semi-independently, must lie. It's quite simple to comprehend once you're outside of that little aquarium you inhabited. If your worldview is based on a lie, reality will come a-knocking. So you better be prepared. You better be ready to defend your views from reality. Otherwise you might experience a dissonance. You also better learn to compartmentalize. Learn from the best. People who've done the greatest acts of evil in modern times were also the best at compartmentalizing. After all, Adolf Hitler famously liked to paint, and Rudolf Hess was a loving and caring family man when he wasn't directly responsible for the systematic murder of roughly 1 million Jews. This is the danger. The whole history of totalitarian regimes like the Soviet Union and East Germany were based on lies told, believed, and accepted as truths. But it comes all the way down to the individual level. If your worldview simply doesn't sit with reality, then you have two choices. Accept reality, review your beliefs and see where they fail, or lie. Now, since the left is based on shallow utopic propaganda, most of their views shatter against the walls of reality. So in order to keep going and maintain the feeling of moral superiority, they choose to lie on the majority of those junctions. That is why they lie. That is why I lied. I did not want, I couldn't accept that reality doesn't follow my worldview, so I chose to believe lies. Well, no more. Even now, when I consider myself, at least in thought, a part of the more conservative right, I still stop every now and then to test my beliefs against reality, but more importantly, against God's direction. And if a belief or a view I adopted throughout the years is in conflict with God's word, well, there really is no competition here. Sadly, we can clearly observe quite a few people on the right these days who lie constantly. Why are they doing that? Well, for the same reasons as the left does, and with the same potential disastrous consequences. There is no such thing as my truth. There is only truth, the truth. Now, it is also true that sharing, subscribing, liking, and pledging via Ko-fi would really help the podcast. So stick to the truth, eh? And with that truth in mind, I will bid you farewell for this week. Thank you all for joining this episode of the Holyland Dispatch podcast. God bless.